Hello there.
Oh,
I just tweeted and I made a typo.
hate it when that
Bad.
happens.
So bad. All right. Welcome everyone. Welcome to the Cloud Native Fiesta KubeCon and Microsoft Build 2023. And I said that without stuttering.
Very good.
That was very nice. We went to KubeCon
We
and
did.
Cloud Native Con, I should say,
Yes. In Amsterdam.
in Amsterdam. We joined up. We went there. It was amazing. We checked out Microsoft Build remotely, but we checked it out, and there were a lot of cloud native announcements that we wanted to share to just share our highlights, the things that were good, things that were not so good, just share our honest opinion. But before we do that, we use StreamYard for this, and we used to do Intercept Insights, and then we've been using StreamYard for a long time. I hadn't used it in a while. And now it's got background music. Now, this is called feeding the ducks. It's nice, reviving.
I'm just picturing myself by the pond with a bit of bread feeding the ducks right now.
That's exactly my point. Have you ever gone feeding the ducks
Yeah.
with that kind of music?
Never with that music, ever.
Someone named it.
Maybe a bit
Feeding
of
the
Taylor
ducks.
Swift, but that's about it.
Yeah, we're not going to talk about your Taylor Swift tweet. We're just gonna skip that, mate. We're just gonna skip that.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, I see Carl is here as well. We've got some people here. Welcome.
Alan's here. Hi, Alan.
Hello. All right. Yeah, KubeCon. Let's start with KubeCon.
Yes.
What do you think of it? KubeCon Amsterdam.
Well, it was really big. So around 10,000 attendees, which was massive. First
Per
time
day.
I've ever been to First time I've ever been to that venue as well, which was not too bad. A nice walking along through Amsterdam, getting to the venue every morning. It was really good. Hi, Gert is here as well. Nice to see you. It was, the networking aside was awesome. So I was meeting all these people online that I talked to actually in person, meeting some cloud ambassadors, so cloud native ambassadors, figuring out what's going on. Learned a lot. Didn't see many sessions while I was there. It was mostly about the networking and chatting to the actual people creating the products, the CNCF products and stuff. So a lot of fun. How about you?
Well, almost the same thing. Other than that, I really disliked the virtual reality gaming that we did.
Yes.
I lost horribly in a VR game to Richard. So
Yes.
he's got it. How do you have that? How do you have that on your desk?
I knew this might come up, so I thought I have it ready.
Well, it did come up, and I lost horribly. It was a very nice game. It was very well made.
Mm-hmm.
You actually felt like being inside the game, and no, it was very, very good.
Yeah.
Other than that, we went there with a mission from an Intercept perspective. We wanted to do better monitoring on Kubernetes. We wanted to do better standardization, or more standardization, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
I think we learned a fair amount, and we met up with lots of good partners.
Yes, definitely.
Even I really like the keynotes.
Yes.
And I'm usually not a big fan of keynote speeches, but I really liked it. Well, then obviously the AKS team, or some people of the AKS team were there, so we did get a sneak peek into some stuff. And some we can share, some we cannot. But we learned a lot, and it's good to see companies like Microsoft being there at what CNCF said is the biggest open source event in Europe.
Mm-hmm.
Next year, Paris.
Disneyland. Woo!
Book your tickets to Disneyland now.
Yeah.
Next year, KubeCon is going to be in Paris. All right. So lots of announcements. Some we are very happy about. Some we have an opinion about.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes a very harsh opinion, which is fine.
Yes.
Let's just go through it. And I just want to start with, and I'll pronounce it correctly according to British pronunciation, Mariner, or as you keep fixing, Azure Linux.
Azure Linux. New name for it. The actual product's been around for a little while, but it's officially called Azure Linux now. It's just a Linux operating system made by Microsoft for running container workloads. So you can't run your container, you can't use it as a container image. It's the actual node workload. As Alan says, CBL Marina or Mariner, however you want to say it.
Mariner.
Yeah. It's basically just rebranding of that, calling it Azure Linux. If you're running AKS HCI, so on-premise AKS, then you've been running this operating system for a little while. Basically, it's the Linux version they use. If you're currently running Ubuntu and you want to switch to this, it will work. It's absolutely fine to do. It's definitely worth checking out. Your thoughts, Wesley?
I think image size is the biggest win. Optimized for Azure. I do like it that they call it Azure Linux. Though it does give me some reminders of, I think, what was it called? Lindos. We had that in the past or something, like a mix of things. I don't know, for some reason that just comes up to me. No, Azure Linux, I think it's going to provide, especially at scale, a significant boost in performance. But we've been reading about CBL Mariner so much, like Alan said, that that's still the name I use for it, Mariner. But it's Azure Linux. I'm excited. We're going to try it at scale in the upcoming weeks. So maybe we've got another thing we want to share at the end of the show, but we'll come back with some results on how that went. Yeah, I don't see much trouble migrating over either.
No. And the best thing is it's going to be supported by Microsoft. It's built by Microsoft. They control the whole thing, so they're not relying on a third party like they are currently with Ubuntu. That product 1804 is now end of life. So if you're running your clusters with that, you now need to go and upgrade to 2022. Whereas this, it would just be continuously rolling, and then you don't have to worry about end of life support. It's always going to be supported for you, which is nice.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? We don't have to swap image versions because we're no longer getting security updates. It's going to be supported until the end of time. Well, probably not, but for a very, very long time.
Yes. Yeah.
It's just a safe choice to do. We can only recommend it. In a couple of weeks' time, when we tried it at scale and it wasn't such a good idea, we'll let you know as well. But I think it's going to be just fine.
Yep. Definitely.
And I quickly want to jump over to AKS Fleet Manager. I have not used it. I've read about it a lot. It was a very, very, I don't want to say immature, junior project.
That's a good way.
When it was released. It's what we see with Microsoft on Azure a lot, right? So something new is being released. They want to push it out because they're also competing with AWS, GCP. So it needs to come out, needs to be there, but it doesn't contain all the features that we really, really want. But there have been some major updates in the past couple of months. And it's maturing. And I'm looking forward to try it.
Yeah. So basically, for the people who don't know what it is, it's a Azure resource to manage your AKS clusters, your collection of AKS clusters. So think of this as your central point, your like WSUS server in a way, where you would update all your other servers or your main SCCM server or something like that. So this is your control plane as such for all of your clusters. You can then create services in this control plane which can load balance over different AKS clusters, which is really cool. And you can also do different update cycles. So you could have, say, a dev cluster and then 2 production ones, East US, West Europe, or something like that. You could say, update my production one. If that all works well, then we'll go do East US, because we can do it in hours, in UK hours. And then we'll go in, if that all works, we'll go and do the other one. Or you could do both of the production ones at the same time. You can do all this cool sort of scheduling of your updates now via this Fleet Manager. So I think it's getting there. Still, it's in preview. Give them feedback if you're using it. But I think once we get the full feature list out that they've promised us, we're going to see Fleet being used a lot more. It runs, obviously, AKS in the background. You don't see that. So it's AKS running, AKS controlling AKS. But it's going to be good, I think. I hope. Don't hold me to
I hope. We'll see. We'll test it. We'll cheer about it, or we'll burn it. So, hello, Massimo. Hello, Sana. Thank you for joining. Thank you for supporting. Now, I read some hate for this on Twitter by
Yes.
Mr. Irish Techie. That is related to Fleet, not to Fleet Manager. That was still related to Mariner and Ubuntu. Now, if we're talking about hate, let the hate begin. Azure Container Storage.
So
Bring it. Bring it.
Storage. It's a good thing, but I still firmly say if you can get away not running workloads that require attached storage in Kubernetes, then just running without attached storage. But if you have the use case for it, go look at this because it's so much better than the current CSI offering. So the container storage interface offerings that we have mounting Azure files in or blob storage. With this, it connects to the Azure Elastic SAN service that they have and ephemeral disks and blob storage. So you create like a storage pool. So back in the days of Hyper-V or VMware, you would pull all your storage together and use that. Same thing can happen with this. Microsoft say they are the first cloud provider to offer this kind of service for Kubernetes, which is really cool. So it's good to see them at the beginning. And I'm excited for the people who want to run workloads that require locally attached storage. Ideally, try not to, but this is going to help a lot. Yeah.
I have no words. No, I think it's a very good development. But do we really want state?
Yeah.
Some companies do. I get it. It's for the bigger market. It's jumping out of the niche and
yeah, I think this is part of the journey to sort of mainstream Kubernetes in the world of enterprises as well. So, you know, it's going to be good. And then obviously there's some apps out there or some CNCF projects where it actually lets you run virtual machines inside Kubernetes and stuff. So this could actually be quite beneficial for that as well. I don't see why you want to, but you could.
Stop.
Yeah. Don't do that. Maybe.
Anyone running virtual machines in Kubernetes? Can we kick people from the chat?
Maybe.
No,
not.
you can. No, you can do it. Just know you can do it.
Yeah. As Carl says,
state
enterprise this is where I think it's going to be targeted more towards the enterprise.
Yeah, adoption for the enterprise. But then again, we are, keeping state. Now, when we're talking about stuff that we don't need and don't want, now, I'm just being the devil's advocate here and being very opinionated. But now that we're talking about bad architectural decisions, Kubernetes LTS.
Yeah.
Why?
So
why?
Again, enterprises is the answer here. Obviously, you want to design your application so it doesn't matter if you go and do a AKS update, a Kubernetes update, because your application is resilient to that blips of downtime. You've spread it across different availability zones, different nodes and stuff. You've got more than one replica of your application run. But let's be real. How many times do you actually see that in the real world? Not many. People are just starting out on this journey. Big enterprises, their applications are now running in a container, but it can't be more. You can't distribute the load over the two different replicas, and we see it so much. And when you're doing AKS updates or Kubernetes updates, you get 3 different minor versions a year, and God knows how many patch versions a year, depending on what's found. So that's a lot of updating. You're doing big updates quite often, and these are usually break and change updates. As Kubernetes matures, you get API version changes and things will break and it won't work. So it takes a lot of time to troubleshoot that if you're new to it and you don't understand the stuff. Azure's trying to fix that with the extra bits. But yeah, Carl is right. It is for the enterprises, and it's a good thing in the end. Microsoft announced it without much support from the community. They just said we're going to do it, and then they announced it, and then the community is now trying to get on board with it all. So I think it's going to work okay. There's going to be certain applications where you're going to be stuck on. So me and Wesley was chatting earlier about KEDA. So if KEDA, for example, doesn't support this long-term service one because you want a new feature from the newest version of KEDA, then you either need to update your cluster or you can't use this new feature. So it's one of those sort of catch-22 ones. It's good for certain people, not so good for everyone.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that that Carl is touching upon. That's exactly the use case, right? It is for, and you'll probably see companies using, having a state, using container storage, probably interested in LTS as well. I think what we see now is that Geert is saying, I've got multiple customers asking for this. I think it's a very valid question, even though I like to make jokes and bash a lot of stuff that I, in basic principle, don't agree with. It is still a very good idea also because the market is very big. Yes, there's going to be extra costs with it.
Yeah,
but
quite expensive costs, I think, as well. But you sort of need that for the extra engineering resources that are going to be needed, the extra management of it. So yeah, it's going to be interesting.
Well, it's also, I think, even though we can say it's enterprisey, I also see a lot of options for customers that they do containers. They've got some Docker Compose stuff running. They maybe got some ACI running, or for whatever reason have a container in an app service running. I mean, you can do that, but your container estate is growing. You want to run it on Kubernetes. You think that's the better option. Let's just do that. But then you get exactly to the point that you just said. We can't do replicas. We've got a state somewhere, so we want to do container storage. We want to do long-term support. It's probably acceptable to run for 1.5 years on one version and not upgrade Kida or any other example or any other application that you can install on Kubernetes. I think a lot of companies will actually choose to use it. Enterprise probably for a longer period of time.
Yeah.
Companies just starting with their container journey and mature enough to use Kubernetes, they will probably use it until they have refactored or re-architected parts of their application to, more in a more cloud native way. So that's yeah.
Yeah, because all it really does is give you one extra year of support, basically. So you're just prolonging the pain of the updates, but hopefully in that year it gives you the time to get ready for them and get your applications up to date, as you said, and stuff. So yeah, should be good.
Yeah. Also, question: what about those legacy framework apps on Windows? Any updates on that? Not many. One good demo I've seen by Microsoft at the AKS booth at KubeCon was the what's it called? The logging thing, log monitor and extracting logging from, for example, IIS to mimic the way that Linux containers work, so you can actually do something with the logging. That looked very good. You can see that Microsoft is putting a lot of effort into Windows containers on AKS.
Yes.
Lots of stuff about that. No, I think what we are seeing in general is that there was a very, very big gap between what you can do with Linux containers on Kubernetes and what you can do with Windows containers on Kubernetes. And what you're seeing now is that Windows more or less is catching up. Lots of effort is being put in there. So where it was normally like a fifth, sixth, or 10th world citizen on Kubernetes, it's now becoming a more mature product or mature operating system Kubernetes. So that is definitely what we've seen, and that's exciting as well.
Definitely. It feels like Microsoft is sort of treating it, as you say, a first-class citizen. They're trying to get the new releases to support both OSs at the same time, which is nice. It doesn't always happen because there's certain different networking issues and stuff, but they're trying their best, it seems, which is really good to see.
Yeah. All right. That's Azure Container Apps. There's some stuff about Azure Container Apps.
Yes. Do you want to change your banner? There we go.
I just did. Yeah.
Apps and jobs. Now, this is something we've been calling out for pretty much since the beginning of it. Everyone thought, oh, great, I can start running my Azure DevOps agents in ACA. I don't need to spin up a whole cluster to run them. But then it wasn't the case. You could do it, but it could potentially kill that pod at any time, and that would kill your DevOps pipeline job and stuff. So now jobs are supported in ACA. This is probably one of the best bits of news for ACA I've seen in a long time. So I'm super excited about this. This opens up a lot of doors for like batch processing stuff and DevOps pipelines and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think next to but I think it was last year where we were able to do other things than just the limitation to connect between services. They improved a lot of that as well. Probably the biggest change in ACA in a long time. Are we looking to migrate Azure DevOps agents anytime soon?
Potentially, if we're running them on VMSS and we want to run in, have a bit more automation, a bit smaller, less cost, maybe. But most of what I have now is runs on AKS, so I'll probably keep it there because it's nicer, in my opinion.
Think it's going to be cheaper, ACA as opposed to a VMSS?
Potentially, because obviously you can scale it down to 0 jobs, so you could save quite a bit of cost there because it's using Kida.
Here's the thing, though. I mean,
at least try it.
Yeah, I mean, it'll work, and I think it's a very good use case. But lots of people install their DevOps agents or have their self-hosted DevOps agents because they want to install a bunch of stuff on the virtual machine it runs on, and maybe even interact with other Azure services inside the virtual network to do some stuff for whatever reason. I mean, that happens. ACA can't do that just yet, or not as easy, but
not as easy.
If the networking side of things improve, then this is a very, very promising way to run your Azure DevOps agents.
Yeah, so ACA's just got UDR support and stuff like that. So, and has got some VNet integration. So you are getting it. I think it's going to be there very soon. So, yeah.
Yeah, just responding in the chat, but Carl is saying, so the VMSS scale up would be slower. Yes, that is absolutely correct. All right, we've got some other ACA stuff and Azure Functions. Azure Functions for cloud-native microservices. And I will start to say that we had this on Kubernetes, I think, in a pilot or preview thing about a year ago, maybe even longer than a year ago. Sometimes times go so fast. So we're able to run Azure Functions, on ACA. We're already do that on Kubernetes. I think Kida is a perfect example of running Azure Functions on Kubernetes together with Kida. What are your thoughts on the Azure Functions for cloud-native microservices? That's very nicely worded.
It is a nice headline. You notice how they got rid of ACA out of there. Yeah. So I think this is quite good in the sense where you want to run an Azure function, but you need it as close as possible to your backend stuff, which is running in ACA. So like you can have it connected just over that private network rather than getting an expensive Azure Functions plan to do the VNet integration and all that stuff. So you can run it next to it. So it's good if the use case is right. Don't rush out there and use it because you can use it. I would just make sure you pick it because it's the only choice you have left, if that makes sense.
It's your last resort.
Yeah.
As a last resort. No, but I'm just thinking it's nice that you can do it, but I mean, if you're a developer and you're flexible with your code, there's probably other things you can do. It's, you can run Azure Functions anywhere these days.
Yep. Yeah. Literally.
Anyway, I think
Prem as well.
Yeah, but I think that is the power of Azure Functions, the way they are built, and the way they work. It's a very good technology. We use it a lot for DevOps purposes as well. Just be flexible on deployments. One of my other favorite things, we've been running some proof of concepts in the past couple of weeks with some services, but Azure Monitor Managed Service for Prometheus.
Yeah, so this went GA at Microsoft Build, if I remember correct. And yeah, it's about time that we had a nicer monitoring solution for AKS, basically. One that's actually part of the cloud native ecosystem rather than a first-party app that Microsoft's made. This now makes your skills transferable between other clouds, other Kubernetes clusters as well, which is really nice. And it's easier to set up.
But what's happening with the monitoring on Kubernetes and AKS in general? What's happening in that space? Because there have been so many announcements, so many rumors, so many questions. Where are we going? We're all going to do Prometheus.
Yeah, so the metrics part is being used in Prometheus now. So we're going to find a lot more tie-ins with Grafana and Prometheus for the new parts of monitoring that come to AKS. these metrics are now pulled out from Container Insights into Prometheus. You can enable Prometheus without Container Insights as well. So if you don't care about all those logs, because you've got them logging somewhere else, say Papertrail or somewhere with open telemetry like Tempo or Loki or whatever it is, you can enable Prometheus to do all the metrics. So you can get your node metrics and your pod metrics and stuff like that. And you don't need to worry about the log analytics expensive costs because they're off somewhere else. So yeah, it's definitely a good thing. It's a good direction I think Microsoft's going, especially with the open sourceness of it. It's part of the cloud native world, these tools, so they're embracing that more, which is nice.
Yeah, we've been testing some solutions that leverage Prometheus on Kubernetes. We met them at KubeCon, Cloud Native Con.
Yep.
You met them before, I think, in a user group that you, Carl, and some other people are hosting.
Yes.
It's Robusta.
Yep, really nice.
That was my biggest win on KubeCon. I really, really like it. Carl is asking, is Container Insights going away? Now, that is a very good question.
That is a very good question. The real answer is probably not, but
maybe
not be the same way it is now. I think we're going to find more focus on these more cloud native approaches going forward. I think we'll still have a version of cloud Container Insights, which maybe will be the product name embracing these open sourcey products. I don't know. I'm just speculating here. I don't have any inside information, but I think it will be around for a long time because there's so many clusters already out there with it on, and Microsoft won't depreciate it for quite a few years, if at all. So yeah, that's how I see it.
So we don't have inside information. However, what we do see happening is that Microsoft is embracing more CNCF projects into AKS and into Azure in general. So it is a movement that we're seeing that there are alternatives to the. Well, I'm not going to say Container Insights is traditional. It's not that old, right? It's still relatively new, but choices are made, selections are made, and I think that's a challenge for any big public cloud, really. Whether that's going to be Azure, GCP, or AWS. If you look at what's happening within CNCF, and the project is going so incredibly fast.
Yep.
Good luck adopting as a very big enterprise cloud provider, adopting that and sticking with it. I think personally that Microsoft is doing a very good job with the things that they're doing right now. It's just very promising. It shows, it gives a good feeling about the future. So, and then overlay networking. The amount of tweets I've seen about CNI overlay networking, AKS, all the announcements, so many. Yes. Is this the end of Azure CNI?
No, is the answer. So it's the potential end of the way Azure CNI currently works, where it will give you IPs on your subnet, no matter how many. Well, let me rephrase that. So when you're using Azure CNI, every node has one IP address, and every possible pod that you may deploy, so your maximum pods per node, will also get an IP address. That's how it currently works. They have another version where it does that dynamically, so it doesn't automatically assign all IPs, but you still need that range in your subnet. With Azure CNI Overlay, it's a software-defined networking for those pod IPs, so you only need a subnet for the amount of nodes you're going to use. So maybe you use 5 nodes, maybe you use 100 nodes. That subnet needs to be able to hold that, plus a bit extra for updates. Now, as you're saying, Overlay has this like 24 network per each node, and then it does some magic software-defined networking over the top and communicates over, so you don't need to worry about all of that. No network address translation. So it's definitely the way it's going, and the new Azure CNI Overlay networking also supports Psyllium as a backend data plane, which is really nice. Oh, look,
Psyllium.
It's like it was next.
You're getting, yeah, I was going to do a comment first, but you're getting annoyed by your cats just yet?
One of them's got a new collar, and it's
All right. We got a question. Is Kubernetes for developers or for ops? And Carl is saying yes and yes. It's a little bit of both.
Yes.
I think we cannot stress enough that it is a platform to be managed. You need good ops people to get it done. I cannot count the number of times that we've run into a cluster where developers they build amazing containers, but they are not always aware of the infrastructure and the architecture of Kubernetes in the backend because it's an ops platform that needs to be managed. That we had to say, well, you cannot develop your way out of this. This is going to be quite challenging. That's not necessarily the fault of a developer. What we've seen is that Kubernetes in the beginning was being pushed as, hey, developer, look at this. You got a container. Here you got Kubernetes. Just put a Kubernetes sticker on. Good luck with it. Everything will be done. And then Kubernetes is very complex, but we can do all right. So then came AKS and then EKS and all the other cloud providers. And now we've got something so amazing. We will manage it for you, but that's just the control plane. You still need the knowledge of how do components interact. It's just like with traditional virtual machines, and I don't mean it as negative as I'm saying it, but VMA had to talk to VMB. Container A has to talk to container B. The challenge with containers is they are very small, not so much overhead. We're doing more microservices or micro monoliths or whatever you're doing. You probably have multiple containers. So that problem, that ops knowledge, the ops problem that we had in the past is actually multiplied by a lot. So you need a lot of ops knowledge. But Kubernetes, yes, amazing for developers in collaboration with ops. This is where dev and ops need to be good friends if you want to do Kubernetes successfully. I think that's a thing.
Definitely agree.
Back to Psyllium.
Yes.
So much Psyllium. I got a Psyllium t-shirt. One of the better t-shirts that I got. Well. Yeah, it's a very good t-shirt. But it's
also got a free book.
Yeah. I got the book here. So yes. But the book is about eBPF, right? So
yes.
Oh, I got it. I got it by written by Liz Rice.
Yep.
We got a book signed. We got another book signed by accident, but no. So eBPF, it's from back in the BSD, NetBSD, FreeBSD times. We had BPF. eBPF is the more modern version of that. Now you can talk about this a lot. The Psyllium website has a very good image on how this works, but essentially what's happening is you're executing stuff like networking, monitoring, logging inside a safe space, a user space inside the Linux kernel or inside the kernel instead of outside of it, which from a performance perspective is amazing. That's a very, very big difference, especially at scale, very big difference. Psyllium uses eBPF as in like it's almost native. I think isovalent is what it called. I got it here. Isovalent. Do I pronounce it correctly? That's the
isovalent, I call it.
Isovalent or isovalent. I don't know. Mariner, Marinata. I don't know. But that's the more enterprise version of Psyllium. Are we moving to Psyllium?
So yes and no. Currently, the Psyllium data plane doesn't support Windows nodes. So trying to standardize on something at the moment where it doesn't support both, because we have customers with Windows and Linux.
Not yet.
So not just yet, but we will be, because we've noticed Microsoft are pushing this themselves. So Psyllium is the Microsoft choice for CNI going forward, network policies and stuff like that. Wesley's getting another book, and
another book.
Yeah. So we're seeing Microsoft pushing Psyllium more. So we will be going down that route as well, because obviously we want support from Microsoft and we want to adhere to their best practices and everything like that.
I think it's going to be a lot of Psyllium in the future, and lots of it. I think when customers and developers start to embrace it, eBPF in general, then it's going to be much, much bigger. I do expect it to take some time. Now, we were talking about book, and we were standing in line for about 45 minutes for the book from Liz about eBPF. It's a really good book, and it goes from really, really good basic explanation of eBPF to very, very complex. So that I really like that. Though we stood in line for that one, we were also chatting at the Microsoft booth at some point, and then someone said, "Hey, this is where the line starts," and we didn't know what line. It was the line for a book signing. So we actually got a copy of the book from Fippy and Friends. Do I pronounce that correctly?
Yeah, Fippy. Yeah.
Fippy. They already got books about containers and stuff. Here as well. It's this one. It's actually a good, they make jokes about it, kids' book and that kind of stuff. But it's a very good, very good explanation on how things work in terms of security. Kubernetes in general, there's some PDFs about that as well. Git is asking, you're not referring to Psyllium Enterprise, are you? Yes, Psyllium Enterprise, very expensive, very expensive.
We just now, I was not talking about Psyllium Enterprise. The Psyllium built into AKS, so the CNI and the data plane powered by Psyllium, not the Enterprise. So no Hubble support, no Layer 7 network policy support, just the basic one. If a customer wants the Enterprise version of it, then there's another topic we'll be talking about shortly, I think near the end.
Oh, we know?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's in a couple of, they might even be next, I'm not sure, where you can utilize Psyllium Enterprise easier. But we'll get onto that later. I don't want to spoil too much.
Which one is that?
That will be Kubernetes Apps GA.
Oh, yeah, we're getting to that. That's the next one.
Yeah.
But no, yeah, we looked at that pricing as well. I do think that if you've got your processes in order, you got GitOps and you got all that stuff correctly, you got your DevOps processes nailed. I don't think we're going to use it anytime soon, Enterprise. But yeah, so Kubernetes Apps GA.
Yes.
It was just a question in chat as well. What is Kubernetes Apps? It was basically like an Azure marketplace for Kubernetes, right?
Yeah, basically. So the Psyllium Enterprise is actually available in this Kubernetes Apps marketplace. In the Azure portal, there's an extension section. So they also call in it extensions. You click on that, it brings up the marketplace of Kubernetes Apps. Psyllium Enterprise being one of them. So you can get Build via your Azure service rather than going to third party. It automatically does all the updates for you and all that cool, fun stuff. There's quite a few apps in there now. I'm just trying to count in my head how many. There's, I'd say maybe 15 or so apps currently in there.
I think even saw some Veeam stuff in there.
Yeah, I think there's Veeam. There's Nginx in there as well.
Yeah.
I think Trafic might be in there. I can't remember. I looked at it. We should have had it open, but yeah, there's quite a few apps. So basically, these apps are, I'm guessing, Helm charts in the back end, and they're automatically installed into your cluster and managed through automatically via Azure. So it's quite cool. You can actually, if you're a company and you want to add your app to this marketplace, the Kubernetes apps, you can do that as well. You have to go through a process, but it's doable. So I think we're going to start seeing more apps in there, which would be nice.
Veeam, Rini is asking Veeam and then causing possible casting by Veeam. Yes. So yes, that's a yes. But what we saw in KubeCon, there's a big thing on backups in Kubernetes. Like there were multiple vendors. There was even a keynote speech about backups on Kubernetes. I think that goes very well with the things like container storage in Kubernetes LTS. You can see that there are just, now that I think of it, because I try to bash each individual product, but now if you see it coming together, there is actually, a space for enterprises on Kubernetes and Azure Kubernetes, EKS, that thing. You see it coming together, really.
It's
a good
definitely
thing.
Getting to that next level where it's going to be enterprise ready, which is nice to see.
It's enterprise grade.
Enterprise grade, yeah.
Yeah, no, you do definitely see that happening. Just opening up to a bigger market, which is makes sense, right?
Yeah, I feel like it happened with virtual machines back in the day as well. You would find the smaller shops would start on this new technology first, and then the enterprises would then migrate their physical workloads to a few years later. So it's just
early adapters.
Yeah,
early adapters. Yeah. All right, and then we've got. I quite like this. open cost.
Yes, which is based on kube cost, but it's better.
But stuff from Azure Calculator, current costs.
Mm-hmm.
It does a lot of interaction, and I have to say I read about it. I haven't tried it, but it does look promising. Well, back to enterprises.
Yeah.
Let's say you separate stuff into namespaces. You have multiple clusters. You've got multiple teams. Which team and which application, which solution is responsible for the usage on that cluster? And do you want to bill it back internally, or even as a managed service provider, do you want to, give your customer the option to see what percentage of resources go to that customer, what that would have costed, and yeah, I wasn't that big of a fan of kube cost. I mean, it was nice to just run it, but it just needs some maturing. There's definitely a use case for it. To me, not for day-to-day stuff. But in terms of cost, this goes a bit further. We've got the carbon-aware KEDA operator. Now, we know that KEDA, it's KEDA, for those who don't know, Kubernetes event-driven autoscaling, a solution that you can deploy to Kubernetes to quickly scale based on a lot of different things. You can configure your scale object and then look at a service bus, or you can look at, event grid, or whatever you configure, an Azure function. Just think of it, and there's probably a scale object for it. KEDA.sh. Lots of stuff there, but now they have a carbon-aware KEDA operator.
Mm-hmm.
So, environmental friendly Kubernetes or environment efficient Kubernetes. How does this work?
Yeah, it's somehow, I'm not sure the exact ins and outs, but it links to information from your cloud provider, who will tell you that maybe this region has cheaper, well, not even cheaper, but more energy efficient hardware, or storage or cooling. So it will be cheaper energy wise. I keep saying cheaper, but I mean like greener. To run your workload in this area rather than this area. So this KEDA operator will spin up the stuff you need in that region for you, or on that node, to give you the greener options. It's very early. George did an awesome keynote on it for about 5-10 minutes. So I would like to see more of this, and I think this is definitely cool. It works on AKS currently, and it's going to go out to other clouds. It's all open source. So I think we're going to see a lot from this.
Yeah, and then Rini is saying they should also add this to the emissions impact dashboard. It's a dashboard provided in Power BI by Microsoft on the emissions and the environmental damage or not your environment is causing or is generating. Yeah, I think that'd be nice, if KEDA could report on that as well. I do see the big challenge that it's, choosing which different region. I mean, if you're within Europe, you could say it's going to be North Europe, West Europe, Germany. That'll probably be fine. I don't really see it happening with, between Europe and US.
I think
you can have latency and stuff, right?
I think you can limit which areas you want to look at and stuff like that. I've not done too much into it, but I think that's how it works. That's how I would expect it to work, at least. So yeah, it's quite exciting times to see that Microsoft are trying to give us the power to be greener as an individual company.
Yeah, and do keep in mind that what they built so far, it's the scaler that they build, it doesn't just delete stuff or restart stuff, right? It's the parameters you can configure. It's not that you're working your application, you got a nice website, you're doing something in your website, and it's gone because too much carbon. That's not what's happening. They thought about it, right?
Yeah, definitely. Which is good, because I think at Microsoft Build as well, Mark Ruzanovich was talking about trying to get carbon neutral Azure data centers. So you can see this massive push from Microsoft about being carbon neutral, reducing your emissions, and definitely how the world needs to start thinking about technology. The cloud made it so easy for us to spin up as many resources as we wanted within budget. and not even care about the impact on the world. And now they are, which is really cool.
Yeah. All right. In general, biggest highlight, KubeCon or Build, biggest cloud native highlight.
So that's a tricky one because there's so many good things, but I just think I do think how do I word this without upsetting you? I think the LTS thing is actually
upsetting me.
Yeah, because I know how much you don't like the LTS version, but I think the LTS version of Kubernetes is probably one of the biggest impacts we're going to have on the cloud native community ecosystem, because it's starting to bring in bigger enterprises into this world where their requirements might not match the same as the current users. So we're going to see a lot more changes in the way everything runs, I think, going forward, which is cool. How about you?
I can live with that. No, it just doesn't mean I'm not against LTS. I think it opens up the market, so I think that's a good thing. For me, not one specific technology, but the fact that everyone's looking at eBPF is really exciting. The way Psyllium works, the way that other solutions are looking into leveraging it as well. I think there's going to be such a change in performance in the future. Because traditionally BPF was very complex and hard to read, and it was it wasn't plain English, and that I think that's one of the things that eBPF took away. We can understand it better. So I think that's a big thing. The biggest thing I've seen, or the biggest highlight for me in general, not technology related, is the size of KubeCon and Cloud Native Con. I mean, we know that Build is big, Microsoft Ignite is big. Cloud Native Con and KubeCon, it is very, very big. And I love that those worlds are coming together. I think it's very, very good.
Good
so
choice.
Very, very good choice. So we went through our highlights. Obviously, there's much, much more, and we're probably tweeted about it. Yeah, but we have found a solution to that, because there are over 150 CNCF projects. 157 top of my head, 156. I don't know. They incubate left and right. There could be way more right now.
Yep.
But lots of CNCF projects, lots of public clouds embracing CNCF projects. You see them maturing. You see them growing, improving. So we thought of something. We're gonna do a session. Richard, myself, and Carl somewhere in this chat. He's somewhere lingering around the chat, saying stuff. We're gonna host a weekly session, about 30 minutes, about the cloud native stuff that we come into, and we have a highlight of a bunch of stuff right now. But what we're going to do is pick out one specific thing, discuss it, think about it, maybe even get someone from the project in. I know we have some people lined up who are definitely interested in that. Just talk about their journey, talk about what the solution does, talk about how it benefits potential customers, potential people hobbying at home. So we just want to talk cloud native every week, every Thursday, 1 p.m. CEST, right? 1 p.m. CEST.
Yep. So 12 o'clock lunchtime UK time.
Lunchtime, yeah.
Yep.
And it's just fine to jump on the chat, have a chat. We love to make jokes as well. More cloud native stuff coming in the upcoming weeks. Looking forward to it. As for now, thank you very much for joining. If you're looking at the recording afterwards, well, then you've just seen all of it. Thank you for watching as well. And what can I say?
One last thing I'd like to say is, if anyone has any more questions or just want to chat about it, just reach out to us. We're always happy to chat, as you can tell. If you've got technical issues or whatever, just give us a shout as well. We can maybe jump on a call and look through that. And if you're looking for a partner, Intercept, where we work, is obviously the best choice.
Yeah, because you get access to Richard. And I will probably do some complaining in the back end about LTS and container storage as well. No, I think we also have a lot of fun with customers when we deploy this kind of stuff. If you're not a customer, just another partner, and you want to chat about stuff, we're always very open on our vision and what we do. Feel free to reach out as well. And that leaves us with just wishing you all a very good rest of the day.
Yeah.
And thank you for watching.
Cheers, everyone.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye.